Harley Kelly's life could be characterized by its many unexpected twists and turns. He was born and raised in the small town of Ontario, Oregon. When he graduated Ontario High School in the class of 1951, he made plans to attend college. But first he had to deal with a lot of potatoes.
I worked hard in the summers, but I was able to make enough money to pay my college tuition.
His best friend in high school talked Harley into following him to Pacific University. When Harley became unhappy with his chosen major of journalism, another friend again steered him in a new direction.
And he said, well, why don't you switch to pre-med with me? And it was just like that. Up until then, I had no idea that I would be a doctor.
Harley followed that suggestion and graduated medical school from what is now Oregon Health Sciences University. He became a surgeon and settled into private practice in Portland, Oregon, when in 1967, life took an unexpected turn.
I got a letter that said, greetings, you are inducted into the Army.
Captain Harley Kelly was sent to Vietnam and assigned to a hospital in Da Nang.
What really bothered me was leaving my wife with 4 young children. My 4th child was born the day I landed in Vietnam, and I didn't see him for a year.
Harley arrived just as the North Vietnamese launched the Tet Offensive, and his surgical skills were immediately needed. For the next year, Harley kept very busy.
Well, there were 2 basic kind of wounds. One was a gunshot wound. Then there were fragment wounds. Some soldiers would be hit with 30 or 40 fragments, all up and down the body. Landmines, hand grenades, mortars, anything that would fragment.
After a year in Vietnam and the completion of his 2 years in the States, Harley returned to private practice in Portland. When he lost his wife to cancer at only 34, it was up to him to raise the children on his own. That might be the end of his story in the Army, except that 20 years later, he decided he'd like to travel.
And I thought about going back into the Army, and they promised me I could go anywhere in the world. And that's the only reason I went back in.
Only 2 years later, Harley found himself in the Persian Gulf War and Operation Desert Storm.
When the ground wars started, our hospital moved up on the Iraq border, and we took the first casualties out of Iraq. We had about 100 admissions during the first 3 or 4 days. And then when the war ended, we took care of Iraqi prisoners of war that had been wounded because they didn't have good medical support.
After the war, Harley stayed in the Army until they told him he had to retire.
They said, sorry, you're too old now. I was 62.
In 2001, Harley came to Bend to retire, but that never really happened. He married Candy in 2004, and he joined the board of the Bend Heroes Foundation and has been the medical supervisor on 8 honor flights to Washington, D.C. for Oregon World War II veterans. He's been volunteering his medical services since 2004, and at nearly 84, he continues to do so.
Well, I work here in Bend at a clinic called Volunteers in Medicine, and I started there in 2004. So I've worked there ever since, but it's just part-time. I enjoy retirement because I can do what I want, when I want, but I'm not ready to sit in a rocking chair yet. I'm just happy to still be here